So my brothers and my sisters, as we embrace this urgency of creating the beloved community, now is the time to be loved. Love means understanding, redemptive goodwill toward all which seeks nothing in return. So be loved by implementing the demands of justice to eliminate the school to prison pipeline that has so many black children entrapped. Be loved by correcting voting policies that seek to suppress the votes of millions of black and brown people. Be loved and implement the demands of justice by transforming a society that is disproportionately violent toward black lives, including black transgendered lives and indigenous lives. Be loved and correct false narratives and economic policies that continue to divide and pit poor and working class black and white people against each other. Be loved and implement demands of justice where systems and structures are deconstructed and lead the way of living in community that reimagines just, humane, equitable, and sustainable policies, practices, and behaviors. Love your enemies. Bless them that curse you. Do good to them who hate you, and pray for them that despitefully use you and abuse you. Be loved and do justice and love mercy and walk humbly with our God.
Students with King serves as the King Center's flagship engagement platform for elementary, middle, and high school students, highlighting the legacies of Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., Mrs. Coretta Scott King, and the impact of the 20th century American Civil Rights Movement. Our dynamic and interactive programming has reached over 1 million students worldwide. Our core learning programs introduce students to the philosophy of Kingian nonviolence, coined Nonviolence 365, and provide important lessons about how they can apply nonviolence in their immediate environments. Whether you're an educator who is looking for ways to bring the King legacy into your classroom, a student who wants to learn more about this powerful moral movement, or a parent who wants to get your child involved in character building and literacy development activities, Students with King is your one-stop shop for unique lesson plans, teaching resources, educational field trips, and other opportunities to engage with the history of the American Civil Rights Movement and its powerful leaders. We look forward to engaging with you and your students. Together we can build the next generation of compassionate, courageous, and conscientious leaders.
Good morning, guys, and welcome to another amazing Students with King Reading Corner. I am your moderator, Tyreek Wynn. Guys, we got an amazing one for y'all today. We are back. We took a little hop because we had the King holiday, which was absolutely amazing. So shout out to the King Center for putting on an amazing King holiday in January. Guys, like I said, we got an amazing good one for y'all today. But before we get into it, I want y'all to go ahead and comment where y'all are tuning in from. It's time for the roll call. Y'all already know how we do it. So go ahead, comment your state, your city, your school, your classroom. We want to know where you guys are watching from, so that way we can shout you guys out, show y'all a little bit of love. So go ahead and let us know where you guys are tuning in from. Also, we have our QR code, guys, so please make sure you scan and take our survey with the QR code. This really helps us improve here at the King Center, helps us get better so we can better improve and so we can better serve you guys, the viewers who are watching. So go ahead and scan that QR code on your screen right now, and then go ahead and take time to fill out our survey. Only takes a couple of seconds to get that thing filled out. So I want to go ahead and introduce y'all to our amazing guest. We have Derrick Jakolby Washington. He is an innovative, insightful, and ambitious leader, an accomplished author who has captivated young readers with this thought-provoking and inspiring children's book. For this Students with King Reading Corner, he will be reading his inaugural book, Son, You Matter, which takes readers on a journey of self-discovery and self-acceptance. And then we'll also get into the Q&A as well. Let's go ahead and give a warm welcome to Mr. Derrick. How are you this morning?
I'm well, Tyreek. How are you?
I'm doing good. Appreciate you so much for joining us, man. You're going to be here reading your book. Very excited to get into it. So let's go ahead and get into the book reading.
All right. Sounds good. All right. Again, I'm so excited to be here this morning. I'm going to be reading my inaugural book called Son, You Matter. So the book was dedicated to my nephew, KJ, and I wrote, may you grow up in a world that embraces your uniqueness and love you without condition. And it's also dedicated to all of my Black and brown boys and the parents and caretakers that are raising them. You matter. I love my dad. He's smart, tall, and strong, always smiling. He can do no wrong. Each day he wakes me with my favorite song and says, son, you matter. I know, Dad, I say as I ease out of bed, run down the hall, slow down, sleepyhead. I brush my teeth and wash my face. Hurry up, son, we don't want to be late. I rush downstairs to grab my food, give mommy a kiss, then we're off to school. Have a good day, mommy screams. I will, because after school, dad's taking me for ice cream. Dad walks me to school with my bag in his hand. Remember, Ahmad, be a good young man. Be your best, do your best, and don't get caught in the chatter. But most of all, son, remember, you matter. I know, Dad, I say as I rush to class, hurry on through the day. I just want time to pass because I'm getting ice cream and I can't wait. Chocolate chip cookie dough. This is going to be great. The bell finally rings and I rush to the car where my dad awaits. What's up, superstar? How was your day? And what did you learn? I passed my test and got an A in return. That's great, son. As we drive down the street, lights flash, then sirens blast, and I turn in my seat. Pull over that car, the officer yells. Dad pulls to the side and puts his hands on the wheel. Ahmad, face forward, and you keep still. Stay calm and sit back. It's okay. Just chill. What seems to be the problem, officer? What did I do? Step out of the vehicle and I'll deal with you. Dad opens the door and the officer grabs his gun. Hey, man, calm down. Don't do this in front of my son. Put your hands in the air so that I can see them, or I'll shoot you right now. I don't even need a reason. Leave my daddy alone, I yell out in fright. Ahmad, be quiet, son. It's going to be all right. Whose vehicle is this? Who does it belong to? Here's my registration, officer. Look, I can show you. Well, why didn't you say so? I guess it's all right. You two be on your way and have a good night. Dad gets in the car and we drive in silence. No music, no talking. Everything is just quiet. We arrive at the parlor. Dad orders our ice cream. Then we sit in silence. This all feels like a dream. Dad hangs his head and lets out a sigh. He sniffles a bit and begins to cry. Ahmad, No matter how they treat you, no matter what they do, remember, you're a young Black king. They can't take that from you. Stay calm and listen and do as you're told. I want you to live, son. You don't have to be bold. As soon as he said it, he began to weep. His anger, his sadness, his pain was so deep. I sat in amazement and watched my dad, so strong and so brave, yet now his spirit was so sad. I knew what he meant and why he must have felt shattered. So I grabbed his hand, looked him in the eye, and said, Dad, you matter. And that's the end.
Awesome. That was a fantastic book reading. Kudos to you on the way you read that. That was I felt like I was there, so that was really great. One thing, so a lot of things to break down in this book. And before we get into that, guys, if you have questions, go ahead and make sure you comment your questions down in the chat. And then also go ahead and comment the classroom and school you're tuning in from as well. Oh, then we got somebody from Elizabeth City, North Carolina. Appreciate y'all so much for tuning in this morning. B2M crew from Las Vegas. Appreciate y'all so much for watching. Oh, they here with me in Las Vegas. That's where I am doing the broadcast from this morning. So so guys, go ahead, comment your questions down below, and we'll try to get to as many of them as possible. But first thing I want to break down is, of course, the central message here is you matter, right? Mm-hmm. Can you tell, let's start with that. Can you tell people exactly what that means?
Yeah. So the time that I wrote the book was during the time of George Floyd and the senseless killing of George Floyd. And during that time period, we had a president that was consistently referring to Black and brown men and boys as thugs and as less than. And so I wanted to reaffirm and just reiterate this message of worth, self-worth. And so I think it's so important that we take back the narrative from society, from media, and what have you, and all of these external players that like to shine a negative light on Black and brown boys, Black and brown men, especially, and just let you know, hey, I don't care what society is saying, you matter. You are worth it. You are loved. You are valued. You matter.
Wow, I love that message there. And I think it's definitely needed, especially, at a time like this and stuff. And so you said that so what you're telling me is during the time of the George Floyd situation, mm-hmm. that's what actually inspired and sparked this idea for this book.
Yeah. So I actually, like many of us, sat down in 2020 to kind of reconcile my thoughts and emotions around the whole George Floyd ordeal. And certainly it wasn't the first time that something like that had happened. But I think that because we were in the height of the pandemic, everybody was at home. It just really impacted me much differently than some of the others. And so I sat down and really began to think about life. My sister had my nephew 6 months prior, and really I began to envision what would life look like for him in the next 15, 20 years or so. Will he consistently be judged based on the color of his skin, or will the world fully embrace him and accept him for the greatness that he's going to bring to the world? And so I just sat down, began to write my thoughts around that whole situation. And it morphed into a poem. I ended up reading it to my sister the next day. And she said, you absolutely need to turn it into a children's book. I was like, nah, I'm not trying to do that. And I ended up reading it to a few other friends, and they literally confirmed what she said. And so, yeah, the rest is history.
Nice. Got you. So and I will say one thing that I noticed in this book, and I thought it was pretty interesting too, and it's actually something that I haven't seen since we've done the Students with King Reading Corner. But one thing I noticed that was very interesting about the book was with the illustrations. I saw that you had the bodies, and then of course you could see the color of each person's skin, right? Of course, the son and the father were Black, the officer was white. But one thing I did notice was that they actually didn't have any faces, right? So was that on purpose, just so we could focus on specifically the color of their skin, or was that just something that was just done,
So,
or was that on purpose?
yeah. So it was absolutely intentional. And the whole idea around it is because I want the reader to be able to envision themselves in that position, right? Because honestly, it could happen to any of us. I don't know about you, but I've certainly been stopped unjustly, not, was doing anything wrong. And I just want people to realize that, those situations can be tough and can affect us all differently. And so I really wanted the reader and the family to just be able to put themselves in that position.
Got it. Okay. Yeah, because we got somebody else tuning in. We got Mrs. Blake's fourth grade class. Appreciate y'all so much for tuning in. Thank you, Mrs. Blake class, for so much for tuning in this morning. And then we also have somebody, Tammy Simpson says, I love what you did with the book and the platform. It's such a great way to share it. Thank you, King Center. Appreciate y'all so much for tuning in as well. Also, guys, don't forget, if you do have questions, make sure you comment those down below. That way you guys can be part of the conversation and get into it as well. So when it comes, because going back to the George Floyd situation, that's what inspired this book and stuff like that. So when it comes to situations like this, how can you, explain to, or okay, so with the officer and the situation that took place with the dad and stuff, right? Do you think that do you think that kids necessarily understand exactly what was going on in that situation, or what is a way maybe you can kind of break that down so they can actually understand exactly what was taking place in this book situation particularly?
Yeah, I absolutely think kids understand. I think I'll just say that, during that time frame, I was doing a number of different classroom talks, and I have a number of friends that work in education, and oftentimes they were saying our kids are coming back asking, what do we do in this situation? What do we do? If we're stopped, or do we have to now be afraid of all police officers? And so parents, educators, youth leaders, or what have you, or at least the ones that I was speaking with, were having a difficult time trying to really break down that situation. What do you do? And so I feel like this book can be a perfect catalyst in, having those discussions. How do you broach the subject of if you are stopped unjustly, make sure your hands are, at a certain point on the wheel, that they are in plain view. What do you do if, an officer tells you to get out of the car? And so I think that, books like this one are incredibly important in, again, broaching those very sensitive subjects, those real subjects that so unfortunate that we have to, deal with.
Yeah, most definitely. I'm glad that we're having this conversation on Students with King Reading Corner. That way we can educate the students on exactly how these situations sometimes pan out, how they work, and all that stuff. And that brings me, because you just mentioned that what you should do in a situation like this. And one thing that I really, really love is that you put in the book is that you put that the father put both of his hands on the wheel. And then he also told his son to, be quiet, don't say anything, just sit back, sit tight, and make sure they see you, what you're doing and stuff like that. Talk about the importance of doing that in that certain situation.
Yeah, I think it's just incredibly important that you just abide by, whatever the officer is asking you to do. I think, and again, there's a line in the book, the last page or so, that where the father is telling the son, "I want you to live, son. You don't have to be bold." Essentially, he's not saying, "Hey, don't shrink in your greatness," but I want you to live. This is not the time for you to get revved up and really try to act tough, if you will. This is just a moment for you to, hey, listen, you've been pulled over, whether it's justly or unjustly, you've been pulled over. Put your hands in plain sight. No unnecessary movements. Stay calm in this situation. And I believe that, preferably the calmer that we stay in these situations, the more or the less fatalities we will have in these types of situations. And so yeah, I would say just really listen, abide by the officer's request, know your rights. I think that's another thing, is to really be clear around your rights. But this, again, is not the moment for you to act super tough and to kind of buck up against some of the requests that are being asked of you.
Yeah, got it. Appreciate you so much for sharing that. And guys, those of y'all who are tuning in, appreciate y'all so much for watching this morning. Go ahead and make sure you put some comments down below in the section. Also, let us know where you guys are tuning in from. That way we can shout you out as well. So I do want to also talk about this, right? How does this correlate to Dr. King's philosophy of nonviolence, right?
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us how this kind of ties in with that?
Again, like this is the time where you are really like listening to the request. You're not, again, bucking up against some of the requests that are being asked of you. As you notice, the father listened. He was very calm in this situation. Again, I think that it's a natural inclination that we feel. We are afraid of those situations. Sometimes those emotions and those senses are heightened, when we are in situations that cause us to become afraid. And so, but if you notice in the book, the author remained, I keep saying the author, the father remained calm. The father remained respectful with the, in the situation. He was not disrespectful to the officer. He listened again, and just maintained this calm disposition. And it ended up, I believe, in that instance, saving his life, because it could have gone a totally different way. And we know stories that have, situations like this have manifested in front of folks' children. And so I think that it's, again, important for us to remain calm in these types of situations.
Yeah, definitely. He definitely took the courageous route and stuff within the situation. And then also one major key thing as well, I do want to point out, and I want to hit on this, but the officer, and this was in the book, the officer actually pulled the gun out, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Can you talk about that a little bit? Why was it so important to put that piece in the book? Because that's a really big key factor.
Yeah, because I feel like, so many, and again, this is not a slight against our police officers at all. And again, this book is not to promote, negativity in policing, but it is to promote inequities in communities of color. And so we see time and time again that, in these types of situations, officers act in haste. They don't necessarily think through the repercussions or begin to display the proper protocol in these types of situations. And so I wanted to really portray a real picture of what could potentially happen. And you could be faced with an officer acting in haste, pulling out his weapon against you immediately without having just cause. And so, again, it's important to highlight, the point that we were just discussing, that in this situation, even in the haste or anxiety, this father remained calm in that situation.
Yeah, got it. Definitely appreciate you explaining that piece of it as well, because like I said, I think it's a very important piece of it too. And one thing I do want to ask you, because we talked about what's in the book specifically, but I also want to talk a little bit about something kind of around that or outside of that, what's in the book. But where, as far as being an author and stuff like that, can you share with us what's that book writing, that book publishing process, what exactly goes into that, for those who may be watching and something may take place and that may inspire a book in their life?
Yeah, and if you definitely have a book, I say write it. Definitely get it out. It's so important. It creates a legacy. It creates something that remains when you depart from this earth. So I'll just add that tidbit. But I tell people all the time that I didn't have the traditional author's journey, in that I did not set out to become an author. I knew nothing about the publishing process at all. But my book was written, illustrated, and released in 30 days. And so typically
Wow. You said 30 days?
30 days.
30
Yes.
days. Okay.
It spoke to the relevance of the timing, and like everything really just fell into what I like to say is divine order for me, honestly. And to have the book released in 30 days. And so, but if you are to write a book, I encourage you to have more than 30 days, but to really develop a clear marketing strategy, because it's not just the book creation and publishing process. It is like, you don't want to just release a book and it goes nowhere, right? You want it to reach the masses. And so let me just explain the publishing process first. So it is, if you are writing a children's book specifically, your book will go through a number of different rounds of edits. And so typically on your publishing team, you have folks that will help to write with you, help folks that will review your content. And then there's the illustration piece. And you know, depending on who you work with, that could take a bit of time. And so once you've gone through your editing process, the book has been illustrated, and then it goes to publishers. They work with a number of major distributors so that your book can get into like Barnes and Noble, Amazon, and the things like that. And then again, once the book is published, you want to develop a marketing plan. Like, is that social media? Is that, you know, enlisting the support of a publicist so that you can do wonderful interviews and things of that nature. But the goal is to really get the book out into as many hands as possible.
Nice. I love that. Appreciate you so much for explaining that process. That way, the people who are watching and listening, just in case they might have that aspiration to go out and write a book, now they know what to do and know the necessary tools and things they need in place to make that happen. So I definitely appreciate you so much for sharing that. And before we wrap it up, because we're about to close it out in just a sec, I do want to ask you, where can people go and get the book?
Absolutely. So you can get a signed copy of my book on my website. It's djakobywashington.com. Signed copies are available there only, or you can purchase through any of the major online distributors, so like Amazon, Barnes and Noble, Walmart, Target.
Awesome, fantastic. And then last but not least, two key takeaways that you want people to leave when they do go out and purchase this book. What are two key takeaways you want them to walk away with?
I want you to understand the importance of positive role models in your life. As you noticed in the book, there was a positive male figure in the life of that son, and whether it be a male or a female, just enlisting the support of a positive role model, I think, is essential. One that can speak into you and allow you to regurgitate those affirmations in times of frustration or fear or what have you. So that's one takeaway. And then the second takeaway is just this whole idea of self-worth, and to understand that you are valued, you are loved, and that ultimately that you matter. And so in spite of whatever people are saying, whatever the media is saying, know that you are valued, and know that you are loved, and that you matter. So
awesome, man. Yes, thank you so much. I appreciate you for coming on this amazing Students with King Reading Corner. It was a pleasure having you, and I can definitely say that I know the people were definitely inspired, and they definitely learned something from this book. So definitely appreciate you so much for sharing that. It looks like let me see. Actually, it looks like we do have another question. This one actually came from our producer, Mike. This one actually came from Instagram. So it says, what about a book written in a sense these boys are being raised by just the mother, though society says we can't teach a boy to become a man, but can guide them towards a direction? That's really important. I do want to, if we can answer that, real quick. Because that was great.
So I think I understand. I think if I'm understanding correctly, the question is around if young men are being raised by mothers or maybe in single parent households. So I am the product of a single parent household. My mom, my dad left my family rather, when I was very, very young. And so I was raised by my mother, and my strong women. My grandmother, I tell this story often, but when I was in kindergarten, I'm from Florida, so I have a Southern drawl, and I speak very quickly when I'm excited. And so they tried to diagnose me with a learning disorder and a speech impediment, which would then move me from for the lack of a better term, quote unquote, mainstream classrooms to now a remedial class. And so there was not any differences in the way that I comprehended information. I just spoke incredibly quickly when I was excited. And so had I not had a mother that rallied behind me and advocated for me, who knows where I would be. So my mother ended up going to that school and saying, hey, no, my son does not have a learning disorder. He just needs to slow down. And so ultimately she removed me from that school and placed me in another school where I was placed in, quote unquote, gifted or advanced classes. And I share that story because I look at my life and the trajectory of my life now, not saying that I've arrived, but certainly I've accomplished a lot in my life. And so I look at that in comparison to a lot of the people that I grew up with that may not have had that support system. And it makes me think, wow, what would my life look like if I had not had a mother who advocated for me? Again, I had some positive, male role models through my uncles and my church, but my mom and my grandmother and my great aunts, they raised me. And so when you say that, when people say that mothers can't, support and raise their children, I don't subscribe to that theory. I feel like history has told it time and time again that there are very strong mothers that can rear and really guide their sons. And so, yeah, that's my response to that.
Yeah, wow, definitely appreciate you so much for sharing. I think that's very inspirational how they tried to place you, but your mom stepped in, having that amazing role model in your life. That's fantastic, man. So definitely kudos to you, man, and kudos to mom too, and kudos to the amazing female role models out there as well. So
absolutely,
definitely appreciate that. Well, like I said, appreciate you so much for taking time to join us on this amazing Students with King Reading Corner. Guys, appreciate y'all so much for tuning in and watching this Students with King Reading Corner. We greatly appreciate you guys so much every time. Go ahead, make sure you scan and fill out our QR code to go ahead and take our survey. This really helps us improve here at the King Center with Students with King Reading Corner so we can best serve you guys, the viewers who are tuning in. Like I said, appreciate y'all so much for watching this amazing edition of Students with King Reading Corner. Our next Students with King Reading Corner will actually be in April. So we will see you guys in April. Stay tuned in. And hey, have an amazing week. Have a great rest of your day.